Welcome to the DVD Director's Cut of Voodoo Academy. My name's David DeCouteau. I'm the director of this epic. Jake C. Michaels at the master control there. We're sitting here at the lovely Fat Cat Post Studios in downtown North Hollywood. What we have here is the opening sequence to Voodoo Academy. There's an insert shot there. This is a 4-day feature we shot in the winter actually this is January of 1999 we shot this movie. It's a 4-day wonder. The origin of this movie is very, very interesting. I was directing 2 movies for Full Moon in Romania. I was doing Witch House and Retro Puppet Master back to back that winter, and right before I had left, I had done a quick show called Alien Arsenal, which had a young actor in it named Riley Smith, who was our first picture together. Riley was rather new at the time, and I thought he was just adorable and a fabulous young actor. So I went off to Romania and did Witch House, and I did Retro Puppet Master, and then on the way back on the plane, I came up with this idea as a vehicle for Riley. This idea about a Bible school and a demented, Macumba-crazed demoness. And I thought this would be a perfect story idea for Riley, something he might find really interesting, a lead role. And so when I arrived back to the United States from Romania, I'd pitched this idea to Charlie Band at Full Moon, and he had felt we covered the same ground in a film we did a few years earlier called Talisman, but I really wanted to try something a little different and twisted and unusual and really push the envelope. This is one of those envelope pushing scenes right here with the priest tweaking his nipples. So Charlie agreed to let me do what I wanted to do as long as the following week I would make another movie for him called Totem. So I went ahead and cast this movie the way I wanted to cast it, with the lovely and enchanting Deborah Mayer, and a bevy full of young, handsome young actors. And we shot the movie in 4 days, 4 principal photography days. And we tried some unusual things. What we did was the picture was shot in 16 millimeter using the Fuji 500 stock, and we had a little problem with the stock. As you can see, the movie is a little grainy, and with the exception of a few shots. Now we did, about 6 months later, we did insert shots with 16 millimeter Kodak and 35 millimeter Kodak for all of our shots where the boys were shrunk down to voodoo dolls. And you can really tell the difference. I was very disappointed with this stock. I've used Fuji 500 before, and Howard Wexler, our DP, had shot at least 1 million feet of 16 millimeter over the past 30 years, and for some reason it just ended up very grainy. Entertainment Post, our telecine house, did the best they could with this very thin negative, but it's kind of disappointing. But you'll see, like for example, this was our 2nd day of shooting, and it's just a little grainy. This sequence actually has been trimmed for the R-rated version of the movie, which went to Blockbuster and Hollywood Video. It's about 23 minutes shorter. This movie, once I delivered my cut of the picture, Charlie Band looked at it. This is the cut I delivered to him. This is my cut. And he was so shocked by what he saw, and just, I guess it pushed the wrong buttons for the horror for a horror film, and he was a little I don't know about disappointed. He was just, I don't know, hoping for something less. Well, let me put it this way: he wanted something a little more heterosexual, and I kind of went all out with this one. And so the movie sat on the shelf for a while, and he didn't really know what to do with it. Like for example, this sequence was cut once the rub down. All the rub down stuff was cut out of the R-rated version. But he was a little shocked by what he saw. So we put the movie on the shelf, and we went ahead and did Totem and released Totem, and I made a few more pictures for him, and and then finally he decided to put the film out as Subhuman, created a really cool ad campaign, and that unfortunately was not representative of what the movie was. And I kind of felt that this movie was like the first horror movie for girls, and we should really push the fact that we have young, handsome young men in the picture. You know, Backstreet Boys and NSYNC were all the rage, selling millions and millions of CDs, and I thought, well, if the biggest consumers in the world are young females between the ages of 13 and 19, maybe we should make a horror movie just for them. And that was one of the reasons why he actually let me make the picture to begin with. But anyway, so so he created this Subhuman campaign, which was Deborah Mayer as Mrs. Bouvier, with Riley Smith like shrunken down, and she's got like a needle, and it was a great piece of work, great piece of artwork, created by Ryan Brookhart and Gilles in the Full Moon Art Department, and recut the picture, cut it down to about 70 minutes, and then solicited it to distributors. And unfortunately, people looked at the film and said, "Look, the box is terrific, but the movie is not what the box is." So we pulled the film out of solicitation. It went back on the shelf, and I personally just wanted to get this film out because I really love the movie. Unfortunately, this particular scene here, we're trying to disguise who these people are, but because the lightning is kind of overactive, you can see exactly who it is, and there is no more mystery. But because she should be wearing her horns at this point. But anyway, so I sat down with our sales manager at Full Moon, Dwight Krisman, sales manager extraordinaire, and Charlie, and our DVD producer Devin Hamilton, and I said, "Look, let's put this movie out. Let's put it out and sell it like what it is, as Voodoo Academy." And they agreed to let us have two versions. One short version that wouldn't be as offensive to certain people, and my director's cut of the picture, which, like I said, is 23 minutes longer than the cut. Ryan did a phenomenal campaign, and we ended up doing a great amount of business. I think it did 30,000 VHS copies to chain stores around the country as the short version, and it's, I think, just hitting the store shelves now, and then this DVD exclusive is coming out 3 months after that release, and then of course we'll have a VHS of my director's cut coming out just in time for Christmas. Now here's part of the title sequence. This sequence here was shot in 35 millimeter at Full Moon Studios on our 5th day which our day 5, which was our pickup day. We actually did this right outside of my office on the 8th floor on Hollywood and Vine. I just thought we had such great faces in the movie. I really wanted to sell the faces. Jared Cornish created a pretty cool title sequence for the short version of the movie. But I had shot this, and I really liked this, and I wanted to keep this intact, and we did. And we put our titles over this sequence. They're a little righteous. The look is a little too righteous, but I think they've got some nice faces. They got Ben Indra here. But the original title of this movie was called Zombie Queen. That was the title I pitched the movie as to Charlie. And I think it was the title and the fact that he had a piece of artwork on the wall of his conference room of a guy with his head shrunken down on a voodoo doll on a little sacrificial table. And I gave him the title Zombie Queen, showed him the artwork, and said it's the first horror movie for girls. I could do it for a price. And as long as I did Totem for him, a week later he let me make the movie. I'm big on the candles with this picture. A lot of candles. Candles always seem to work. They're good for foreground and background. And fortunately, we never really have a lot of time to prep these films properly. We usually have 2 or 3 days of pre-production, and the art director doesn't have enough time to really build sets or do any true set decorating. So bring out the candles. They're great for the foreground. Bring out the stained glass, and that always looks good in the back. And shoot tight, and the audience only sees what the camera sees. So, but these 4-day wonders are extremely difficult, probably for the actors more than anyone else, just because that if we're shooting 24 pages a day, they have to memorize 24 pages a day, and if they've only been cast a few days before shooting, they have very little time to prepare. The other problem is that not only are we rushed, we also have very little film stock to shoot. So almost every shot in this movie is one take. So I tried to shoot as much coverage as possible, so I gave them sometimes an additional opportunity to do it a little differently, or to get the line right. But because these pictures are dialogue heavy, 4-day shoot, limited film stock, it's really tough on the actors, and just to get all the lines in them. And but these guys did, I thought, a really good job. Deborah did a terrific job. Okay, this is our first sequence. Actually, this is the first day of shooting. We actually shot 2 different variants on this particular shot, one with that sign, one without. I didn't really like the sign. I thought it would look kind of cheesy, so I did one without the sign. I just removed the sign and just had them walk on up. We decided to go with the sign. This was shot in Pasadena, location in Pasadena, and which is kind of a popular filming location. Riley approaches the Carmichael Bible School, and this is the first shot of the first day. As you can see, there's dirt on the negative. As you can see right there, you can see a lot of dirt on the negative. You'll usually have that on the beginning and ends of the rolls. Even though they sonically clean the negative before they telecine it, they still have damage at the beginning and end of those rolls. This picture was shot, like I said, in 16 millimeter. This is our Fuji stock, which is a little on the grainy side. It doesn't look so bad during the day interiors and day exteriors, but once you go night, it gets kind of grainy. First day of shooting, first scene. Riley looks 14 years old here. He's so adorable, though. He looks, when I first met him, he came into my office at Full Moon, and he was such a charmer, and he just had a little Leonardo DiCaprio thing going. I said, gosh, we gotta get this kid a movie. And put him in Alien Arsenal, loved working with him. He's such a pro. You can't take a bad picture of this guy. He just looks great. So I said, you know, on the way back from Romania, let's do Zombie Queen starring Riley Smith. Deborah Mayer had just done Blood Dolls for Charlie and became sort of a unofficial contract player of Full Moon. She became very popular. The audiences really liked her on Blood Dolls, and so I ended up doing 3 movies with her. And this was the first I did with her, and I just love working with her. She's classy, and she can act, and she is very serious about this. She's very good. This particular location was pretty much dressed already. This furniture was already in this location. We kind of shot this as is. So back to the DVD scenario. We ended up redoing the entire campaign for the DVD. The original campaign that Ryan came up with, I really liked, and so we stuck with that. And then for the short R-rated version, we came up with a concept where we worked the guys' faces into the box, but also Deborah as her monster form coming over the school, in a very effective piece of artwork. Very effective. You'll also see on this DVD, we're trying to do something special here with these lunar editions, at least Devin Hamilton, who's putting this whole thing together, is we're trying to do something a little unusual. This is probably my favorite film I've done for Full Moon. I've done about approximately, I think I've just done, as a director, probably about 26, 27 movies as a director for Charlie Band since 1986. Maybe produced another 12 movies on top of that for him. This is my favorite film. This movie came completely out of my head. It was my idea. I developed the script on my own, and I had pretty much total creative control, and thanks to DVD, we're allowed to put out our own versions and not have too much input from the people on the 9th floor. But like I said, with the lunar editions, there's some bloopers. We have a 15 minutes of bloopers on here, which you'll see. Bloopers are, I think, actually turned out pretty cool. They got 15 minutes. We put that together with Spud the other day, And I got all of the trailers. Pretty much all of the pictures I've done for Charlie Band and Full Moon are on the trailer reel here. And I think we also have some behind the scenes footage. And what I decided to do on the behind the scenes footage was not edit it together. I decided to just run it as raw footage, and I'm going to comment on that as well, so you can see some of the tricks on how I do this. I do these pictures in 4 days. Okay, there's a little camera move here, right here. The camera's moving, but we don't really have a dolly. What I like to do, and what I've been doing in the past 4 or 5 years, is work off of what's called a porta-jib, which is a device you put the camera on, and you have a tripod, and it's kind of balanced on a pole, and with a counterbalance weight. Howard Wexler, who is the DP and camera operator, really knows how to use this piece of equipment. He basically can do any kind of camera move instantaneously, without laying dolly track down, without moving a big dolly onto the location. It's just that toy is so much fun because you can really keep the camera moving. Also, later on, you'll see I've actually used the porta-jib and the cartoni Dutch head, which means I can turn the camera left or right and move it simultaneously to give kind of a floating. Because I hate handheld. I just hate it. I don't like handheld. I'm more for the traditional camera coverage. Riley looks great here. More candles in the background. It's a tough scene here. Deborah's got a mouthful here of... Yeah. You can get it out, Deborah. Say it. There you go. But anyways, most of what was cut out of this picture was, and you'll see later, is any scenes where the priest is touching the young guys, and any scene of the boys writhing when they're having their erotic dreams, which she's able to transmit into their minds while they're sleeping, because she's poisoned them with the voodoo potion that she puts into the wine, part of her overall diabolical scheme to get these kids to submit to her evil wishes. There's very little violence in this movie, and very little blood. At the beginning we have Blake spitting out some blood. We have very little blood in this picture. I've got my usual crew on here. I've got Eddie Hibbs, my costumer, who's been with me for about 25 movies. We speak in shorthand. My makeup artist, Mihai, who's done my last 10, 15 movies. And Howard Wexler. And Steve Buhai was our first AD, the first assistant director who kind of runs the whole show. He's kind of my foreman. A little CGI shot coming up here. What do we have here? What do we have? Yeah, okay, a little CGI shot by David Lang. It's kind of interesting. The sequence was trying to fit so many actors in one shot was really tough in a small room. Again, that grainy. Now, I like this shot. It's a nice two-shot. You got a little blue, soft, low light here. Riley looks exceptionally handsome. Deborah, enchanting, as usual. These guys were really gung-ho, these actors. They really... worked really, really hard. They really got into it. They had a great time. I don't think it was not only is my favorite film for Full Moon and for Charlie, it's probably the most fun I've ever had. I had a lot of fun on Dr. Alien, which was a blast. But this was the most fun because the actors and the crew were so gung ho about really getting a lot of material in the can each day and getting some really quality stuff, and also just the subject matter was just so unusual. It was probably the quietest the crew's ever been on any of my films. They were very, very quiet, especially during some of the scenes coming up later in the picture. It's a little dialogue heavy, this scene, I think. Kind of a exposition, explaining exactly who's who and what and why, and backstory and characterization. Paul St. Clair, that's Drew Fuller, fabulous Drew Fuller. That looks a little infomercial there, that shot there. This was our second day of shooting. What's interesting about this movie is that during the development of the script, we had a development executive at Full Moon who was very much against the production of this film, felt it was sacrilegious and homoerotic and not exactly what we should be doing. And it was very interesting, the conversations I had with this person, and they're no longer at Full Moon. They left pretty quickly after this movie. They were let go pretty much right after this movie was made, but they were really offended by what they read and really tried to stress Charlie to not make the picture. And Charlie is shockingly pretty. He's an extremely liberal-minded guy and open to pretty much anything, and he likes to be kind of on the edge sometimes of the. With movies like Reanimator and From Beyond and Pit in the Pendulum, those Stuart Gordon pictures. So nothing really shocks the guy. So, but this kind of subject matter where it's the main characters of the film are male and in various states of undress, and I kind of shot this to kind of celebrate the male form in most of these scenes. It just pushes buttons that sometimes really makes people uncomfortable. But he went for it. He didn't listen to his development executive and said, go ahead and make the movie you want to make. This is a small chapel inside the same location. That particular confessional there was built for us. Now, that was being built. So this is the reverse angle. Now, right there, the confessional's not there. It's actually being built as we're shooting this scene. What happened was we actually rented a confessional. They got the sizes on the confessional at the rental house, and then thought that they could fit it through those doors, and ended up they couldn't fit it through the doors. So I had to shoot all the footage from this angle here, facing the Reverend and everyone first, and while they're building the confessional out and back. So by the time within an hour of shooting this, I then did my reverses, and I can put the confessional in the shot. So the confessional is being built as we're shooting. Now there it is there. This is later in the day when I'm shooting the opposite direction. I kind of shoot directional. Once we're looking in one direction and lit for one direction, I shoot everything from that day in that direction, which can be difficult because there's about 15, 20 pages in this particular room. Now that confessional there also, there's supposed to be a kind of an electronic device on the top that kind of transmit these weird signals into the booth to help cleanse the boys when they go in for their confessions, and that is actually not even there. You'll see it later on. That will be an insert that we did 6 months later on day 5. Again, more candles, the candle motif. They always look good. Pick and save, 10 cents each, cheap production value. Now, of course, most of this, that was cut from the R-rated version of the film. Any kind of contact between the priest and the fellows. This whole sequence was actually trimmed way down. It's kind of a dialogue-heavy scene, but I like the information here. It's twisted and strange and kind of goes into the mythology of this guy's weird religion. Again, we're working off the porta-jib, so the camera moves a little bit here. And of course, you have that of course was cut from the hand on the leg was cut from the short version of the picture. It's actually a very small chapel, so it was very difficult to shoot in. But since you have glass on both sides of it, the lights were outside of the glass shooting into the room. Made it easier to work instead of tripping over lights the whole time. Huntley Ritter there, the young guy there. Huntley plays, what does he play? Who does he play? Rusty. He went on right after this picture. This was his first film, and he left this movie and went right on to play Kirsten Dunst's boyfriend in a movie called Bring It On for Universal. Ben Indra went on to do a horror film up in Seattle. I can't remember the name of that one. Riley went on to Riley right back there went on to Freaks and Geeks and other TV shows, movies like Grizzly Mountain with Daniel Baldwin. Drew's working quite a bit from what I understand. This film had a whole vibe of like just young beauties that would be like maybe like a network. Like there's our confessional back there. I wanted to cast it like an episode of one of these WB shows, you know, just beauties, young beauties. And the priest, that was a tough role to cast because I didn't want somebody that was I wanted somebody who was mysterious and sinister, but not like gross. So we found Chad Burris here, who was a handsome young man and had a really interesting take on the role, and we went with him, and he was gung-ho about this part, and loved the idea that we were pushing the envelope with regard to his character's relationships with the other characters in the movie. He really likes that. He really liked it a lot. Again, we have more of the hand grabbing the leg here, again cut from the short version of the movie. And our confessional was made like in about an hour. And I think they did a pretty good job back there. The opening sequence to the film where the priest takes off his collar and opens up his shirt and plays with his chest while he's watching Bouvier seduce and disrobe the Blake character played by Audrette Jordan. I could only get his shirt off so far because he had so many tattoos on his body, including huge tattoos on his back. I thought it wouldn't be cool to have a priest with a lot of tattoos, so we kind of hid the tattoos a little bit. Rhett Jordan was the kid at the beginning, Blake, and Rhett left this movie. This was his very first movie. He was, matter of fact, when he shot this movie, he had just gotten in from Texas. He was 18 years old and was living at the Holiday Inn in Burbank. That's how we had to get a hold of him. And we came to Full Moon, and was adorable. And I said, I'm gonna put you in a movie. And so he came down the set. We kind of figured out what role he was going to play, and we had him play Blake. And then he did such a great job. He went right off of this and auditioned for Tobe Hooper for a film called Crocodile, and ended up getting the lead bad guy. And that he shaved his head and did a terrific job in Crocodile. And he's now off doing TV shows and movies. A lot of these kids get their start at Full Moon. Now, right here, this shot, looking this direction, the confessional is not there. They're actually looking at a blank wall because the confessional was still being built during all of this. Even this direction here now this is an insert on day 5 with Kodak stock with our rental prop from Modern Props of the blinking light. That was done on day 5 at Full Moon. Back to the Fuji, grainy Fuji. It's interesting because I've used Fuji 500 and 35 millimeter before. I've shot a couple of features recently with the Fuji 500 35 millimeter stock. It's beautiful stock, but for some reason we just did not have a luck with it in the 16 millimeter here. It's just so grainy. Okay, now there's no booth there. Now there's a booth because there's a wider shot. So as you can see, it's a really kind of a clunky confessional. As they try to open it up, it just kind of shakes, and I think it was made out of, you know, like paneling, and it's just kind of a, as you can see, it's just kind of just made within an hour. We had there are little crosses, little wooden crosses that are on the confessional, and they're on the walls on occasion that have little holes in them, like up in the top there. We put those there, and I think we only had 4 of them, and that's basically, those things are what Bouvier looks through. Later on in the picture, you'll see she's looking through these little holes and observing the boys, because those crosses are on a wall, and you can see right through the cross and into the room, and she could spy on them to see that her experiment on them is working. This is Travis Scher. Travis was, I saw Travis in a movie called Boy's Life 2 and thought he was adorable. As a matter of fact, the Boy's Life 2 was actually a short film I saw at the Los Angeles Gay and Lesbian Film Festival, and it was a terrific little short. And as a matter of fact, 2 of the other actors in that I've used as well. Jason Edelman, who's in that, went to Romania with me, and he's the lead bad guy in Talisman. And based on just seeing him in that short film, and then of course Milo Ventimiglia, who was in the short film as well, went on to do, he's now starring on Opposite Sex, that TV show for Fox. He's the lead. I've been trying to get Milo to do a movie with me, and it's just, unfortunately, every time I brought him in, I just could not get him through producers. And then Travis was in that as well, and I got Travis gave him this role, and he was quite good. It's a small role, and he's a very quiet character, but I think Travis was good. There's little Kevin Callister plays Billy. I think his nickname on the set was Bitch Boy. The rest of the guys call him Bitch Boy. I don't know why they call him that, though. A difficult scene to shoot because you have 4 people and you have the floating camera, and we're trying to get in there and cover it properly, and it's just so dialogue heavy. You'll see in the blooper reel we just could not get through the entire scene without stumbling. It's just so difficult for these actors to do 24 pages of dialogue in a day, which works out to about 2 pages an hour, and on most movies you do 2 or 3 pages for the entire day, and we're trying to jam through this at lightning fast speed. And because I shoot on film I shoot on film exclusively, my movies, the equipment is a little more cumbersome, the larger crew, more lights, that kind of thing. So it's if this was shot on video, we probably could have made this movie in a day or 2, but I just don't like shooting on video. This is actually Riley's reading off the script for this particular shot here, just because it was a long, involved monologue. It's tough to get screen direction right on this too, because we're kind of in the middle of them. So some people are looking camera left, some are looking camera right. More candles in the background. It was really interesting when I delivered this cut of the movie, this long version, to Charlie the first time. I delivered it to him and I didn't hear from him for a week. He was so paranoid, weirded out. He saw it and he just kind of called me and goes, "What in the hell did you do?" I said, "I made my movie." And he says, "Well, it's a bunch of guys running around naked, half naked, and they're, I said, "Charlie, we've got to be we're Full Moon Entertainment. We've got to be on the cutting edge of horror movies." He says, "Well, this is not as horrific as I want it." I said, "Well, let's release it and see what happens." So we'll see what happens. So on occasion, he'll let me do a picture like this. Well, actually, this is the first one. Hopefully he'll let me do another one later. Hopefully, if this one's a success. Out of our clunky confessional there. Door doesn't even close, as you can see, just kind of like hangs there. Confessional still being built for the shot here. Completely shot out of order, which makes it difficult to maintain any emotional continuity for the actors. These movies are shot on film but completed on videotape, on NTSC videotape. So all of this movie was completed in the Media 100. The 16mm negative was telecine and Entertainment Post to Betacam SP, loaded into the Media 100 and edited by... actually, this picture was edited by an editor I had not worked with before. His name was Tom Vader. And Tom absolutely loved this movie. Everything about this movie was like he loved. He just got into it. He loved it. His favorite character was the Drew Fuller character. He thought, "Who is that kid? I love that kid." And he totally got into the material, and he would work hours and hours and hours cutting this movie together. He totally got into it. It was his kind of movie. He did a really good job. This is his cut of the picture, his cut and my cut of the picture, and then of course when it was recut. I'm not sure who recut the picture. I was involved in it slightly, but recut and trimmed way down to offend any of the weak at heart. I don't know. To me, horror films are about pushing buttons and making people experience something that's going to frighten them. And I think there's some pretty frightening moments in this picture for most guys. But I don't know, Clive Barker seems to be doing a good job at pushing buttons, and hell, it's the new millennium, year 2000, people a little more understanding and liberal-minded about things, and I don't know, I just want to do something original. Didn't want to do the same old thing, especially if it's, shrunken people, about miniature menaces. So he's been cleansed, or at least the first stage of the cleansing in the confessional. So Rusty has now been, I don't know, we don't know what went on in that confessional, but we'll get to see it later on. Now these establishing shots here at night were done in 35 millimeter with an Arri 3. Just so they're nice and sharp and clean for the wide shots. Charlie said all the establishings at night in 35. And then, of course, we had our lightning box. Now, this scene was... I remember when I was shooting this scene, because before shooting, when we cast this picture, I told all the guys that they're going to be spending so much time in their underwear that they should probably get on a diet real quick, because they might want to lose some weight. And get in a little better shape. Although they were all in great shape, I thought maybe you should not let them know that. So the first day of shooting, of course, young guys and the craft service table, and they're eating like crazy because they're constantly tempted by what's on the craft service table. And so Riley is a little, as you can see, his hands are crossed in front of him because he has a little, maybe just a little bit of a gut. I think he's too paranoid. I think he has a good body, but he's like so paranoid he wanted to keep his hands in front of his belly just so he wouldn't see the fact that he'd been working that craft service table the day before this. Now, this bathtub scene was shot on the second floor of that location, and very, very small. I think we had one light or two lights tops, shot during the day, and we had to light it for night. And it was a very, very small room. You could barely get anybody in there. A little backstory here. Now, we're about 36 minutes into the movie, and not a lot of horror has happened. Oops, somebody just arrived at Fat Cat Post. The next client's probably coming in. Anyway, it's very busy shop here. They're doing movies by the pound. I think they do all of Full Moon's movies. So we have basically your 2-shot and your 2 singles, which is, at least was not all a master. We actually got some coverage here. And a little bit of eyeliner on him, a little too much eyeliner. I got to talk to Mihai about that. A little too much eyeliner on some of these boys. You got to work the crucifix motif is quite heavy in this picture. Now, what's interesting about this particular scene, the dialogue early in the scene doesn't really apply to this particular location. This entire movie was supposed to be shot on the insert stage at Full Moon on the 8th floor. We were going to build the whole show in this insert stage because this budget on this picture was about $60,000 delivered. So the dialogue at the beginning talks about this is like a retrofitted dorm room it's not really, it's really a true bathroom, but the dialogue really didn't apply. It was supposed to be written to be like a big tub in the middle of an empty room. And of course Riley's hands right in front of his belly. Did not want to let us see his belly. Oh, there you can see right there. Yeah, okay, a little splash. This was supposed to be a little bit more friendly. Then you've got Ben coming in here, Ben Andre. Now, this kind of dialogue was not really appreciated by the development executive at Full Moon. This person felt that too much reference to the male body, and the person was very, very offended by this picture. I remember reading the coverage on the script. Not only is this sacrilegious and homophobic, or homoerotic, but we shouldn't be making this kind of film, and she went on and on and on and on and on. 2 weeks later, she was out on her ass. Okay, so we got our 35, and then we're back to this grainy 16 here. We shot this with a little bit of fog filter because we had a little candles action. We got that lightning going pretty soon, and we wanted a little soft kind of look. I wanted kind of a antique-y quality to this room because there's a lot of dark cherry wood in this particular room. What is very antique-y? Very limited coverage here. Just again, it was we got 6 people around a table. It becomes very, very awkward and boring cinematically in some ways. So I'm going to try to stay away from dining room scenes in the future. Get these people up and moving, doing something. And then we've got Oh, so Huntley is now, something is strange. His whole attitude. He's no longer dressed in his his little jacket and tie. His little he's all Tommy Hilfigered out here. Uh-oh, bad language too. Got the lightning going there. On the lightning, we use there's a lightning box called Lightning Strikes. It's a 25,000 watt lightning strike box that blasts bright blue light from it. It's a box that's about 2 feet wide by a foot tall, and it's one of my favorite toys, and I always keep it on my shows. I try to keep the on these small shows, or really even on the bigger shows that I do, I try to keep the frame and the audio as alive as possible, especially during long dialogue scenes like this. So what it does is there's a flash, it keeps the frame alive, and then you have a constant rumble throughout the picture of lightning and thunder and that kind of thing throughout the whole movie, and it just keeps the sound alive, keeps the image alive as well. And as a matter of fact, our sound effects editor, Howie Holcomb, and I sat through many thunder hits, and we kind of have the David DeCouteau thunder hit reel now, just my favorite kind of thunder. I also like to work with a lot of heartbeats, so I picked my favorite heartbeat, and it's in all my pictures now. And we got our pouring wine. Now, of course, this wine is poisoned with this voodoo powder, because this is now going to stage 2 of her diabolical scheme. Tough scene to do, just because these chairs were so difficult. She could barely fit through them. I think there might even be some bloopers where she's trying to fit through the chairs. It's tough walking, talking, pouring, maintaining some sense of continuity. Jesse Long is my script supervisor. Has been with me for the past 14 years, and he's done a lot of very big shows, Pet Sematary, that kind of thing, big shows, makes big money on those shows, and then on occasion comes to work for me because we have such a great time together. He keeps me legal, keeps the lines right, keeps the continuity correct, so I can concentrate on directing the movie and not worry about too much of the technical aspects of it. I never really worked with shot lists or storyboards. This movie was kind of shot off the cuff, which is how I do most of my films. I like to go in with the actors and crew and kind of make it all happen. So I need a team of people to work with me who can to kind of know how to play it by ear. The script is kind of the where we start, and then we just kind of run from that point. That's kind of our structure, and then we kind of go from there. So Jesse keeps me legal, and especially these dialogue-heavy shows. Whenever I complete a scene, where I feel I've completed a scene, shooting all my necessary shots, I go to Jesse. Anything else we need, Jesse? Need any more shots? Need anything else? Are we covered? Am I covered? He looks, checks his script supervisor's log, makes sure we're good. He goes, we're good. Oh, we could use an insert there, or that line was off screen when they walked over there. Maybe we should cover that. It's really handy to have a script supervisor. But that was, as I was saying about Steve Buhai, who was our first AD, who's probably one of the best first ADs in the business. He actually left this movie and just went right on to American Beauty, actually. Or did he do it right before this? He did American Beauty's second unit that had Kevin Spacey and Conrad Hall and everything. But he's a big first AD, and we worked together on Alien Arsenal. He likes my style, and so he comes to work for me for a price, and we have a good time. He's very good. He really kept the show going. First AD is actually the man who runs the set. The director doesn't run the set. Director is works for the first AD. Really, your job is to be creative. His job is to run the set. So whatever you want, he then goes through all the department heads to make sure that everything you want is there and working and running. The actors have come through makeup. The actor's there for blocking. He calls roll and the sound. You say action and cut and be creative. And a good first AD will allow you to be creative so you can concentrate on the movie and be totally objective and not have to worry about all the technical and complicated aspects of getting these movies made. Again, more candles. Now this sequence here was kind of difficult to stage. What I did was I brought all the boys in individually, and I showed them exactly what I wanted them to do. They would lay on the bed, and I would show them Because what would happen is when I brought them all in, they would start going through this little routine here where they go into their fantasy, their little nightmare, sexy nightmare they were having. They would all start giggling. So I would just pull them in one at a time and just shoot it out. Now what would happen is, for example, here's Travis going into his nightmare, and we've got Hundley. As we shot each individual scene, all the other actors would circle around the monitor and watch. Okay, here's an insert, Kodak insert, 16mm insert on day 5. I just got a quick reverse at full moon. You can really see the difference in film stocks. A busy day at Fat Cat Post. So what would happen is they would all the other actors, like for example here we're on Drew, everybody would circle around the monitor and watch. And as we shot each particular guy going through their writhing fantasy nightmares, each one would try to outdo the next. So here you have Drew really getting into this, and then you have this insert here, Kodak insert, 16mm reaction shot. It's a reverse. I did not get on the set, and after looking at the cut of the film, I decided to do that on that insert day. Now here we have the cartony Dutch head. As you can see, the camera's turning left and right. That's like a cartony Dutch head that you put on the porta-jib, and you can lower the camera and raise the camera and keep that camera moving, keep that frame alive. Now most of this, almost this entire sequence was cut from the short version of the film. I particularly like this scene. This is like, we're on a minute 46 now. If this were a musical, this would be the big production number before the intermission. And this is this is an insert on day 5. I did not get Kevin. This is a 16mm Kodak insert. I did on the stage at full moon. This would be the big production number before the intermission. It doesn't exactly propel the plot much, but it's fun to watch. It's interesting. Here we got our cross, and I think I needed one more shot. A really kind of a tighter shot. Actually, we did get pretty tight on that. And there's the hole, and I needed one more shot. And then she's looking through and watching what's going on in the other room. She kind of spies on them. Yeah, this is the stuff that really bothered Charlie, I think. And of course, boxer briefs on all the guys. This is pretty much my standard. Eddie knows that I want all the guys in boxer briefs. Usually white. That's usually the standard on all the pictures, and there's always usually a lot of guys in underwear in my movies. So Rusty is now, she's like communicating with him into his subconscious, and she's bringing him to her, and he's now under her control. Get 35mm establishing shot. We had one lens with a 35mm camera. Only one lens is all we could afford on that camera, so it's the same shot. And of course, as you can see, the camera's pulling back. We're on the porta-jib here. Very grainy, unfortunately. This Fuji just did not hold up in the 16. She's willing him to her, and now she's going to seduce him. I'm not sure if this really kind of is consistent with the rest of her thought in the picture. Why she seduces them, I don't know. It just seemed to be the right thing to do. A little bit of heterosexual, little heterosexual moment here. One of the few in this movie. And of course, we go into the traditional surrender cinema dialogue here. Pat Siciliano would be proud. Very grainy, unfortunately. We got our lightning box going, which has a little clank to it. It's like a clink, 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 clink. So when you hear that during my movies, and if it's over the dialogue, it's really tough for the sound effects editors to fix that. So, but if it's in between the lines, they can usually pull it out. This was on the second floor. It's kind of a metallic wallpaper in this particular set. Trying to seduce me. This is like that Dustin Hoffman movie, The Graduate, isn't it? Okay, then I like the lighting here, even though it's kind of grainy. I like that fog filter. O'Reilly looking terrific in his little whiteys there, and got the lightning going. A lot of light, a lot of light sources, foreground candles, background candles. Nice little low budget trick there. these 4-day wonders are kind of a race against time. You really don't have time to think, and as a director on these things, even though you're not necessarily responsible, when you're directing a 4-day wonder, you're kind of producing it as well. But because every decision that you make impacts the budget in some fashion. So if you lose an hour, you're dying, and you've got to move fast and compromise, and I hate doing that, but you always do. And but one thing you can get if you're doing a picture this quickly is some kind of creative control, which ultimately at the end of the day is what I want. The schedule and the budget and all that is you never seem to have enough time. But whenever you make this kind of a deal, sometimes you can get the creative control you want, which is great. This is my first commentary, by the way, on any film I've ever directed. I've done about 35 movies, 40 movies as a director, and quite a few as a producer. This is my first commentary. And because this is my favorite film, I thought this would be a good way to start. We also have a trailer reel of all the pictures I directed for Charlie, and I comment on those as well. Now, Tom Vader, the editor, thought maybe we should keep cutting back to the fellows here, and I thought, well, that's a great idea. So we keep cutting back. It's really interesting. The music for this film is not an original score. This music is actually what's called in the Full Moon realm a track job. It's tracked because once a film is locked and we have a street date, we usually have we have very little time to shoot the movie, but we have sometimes less time to finish the movie. So we have what's called we got to get our screeners to Blockbuster right away. Now, you'll hear that phrase at Full Moon like pretty much on a daily basis, which means that Charlie's got a solicitation date. Blockbuster needs the movie way in advance for their buying, which is fine. But then what happens is we don't have time to score it, the film. So we only have 3 weeks usually turnaround time to post these things, sometimes less. And so Don Adams, who's a filmmaker and editor and worked at Full Moon quite a bit, and I think Drew just touched himself there. I think what happened, Don ended up pulling music from all of the other Full Moon pictures. I think there's music here from Pit and the Pendulum. There's what else? There's music from Meridian, I think, in here. But this is an entire what's called track job, and then Jake C. Michaels and his team of sound effects cutters, Millie Holcomb, put all the sound together. I spotted this show. That's one thing. Once I lock the picture, I usually spot with the sound effects people and the people doing the music, and tell them what I want to hear and see. And a lot of the visual effects for this, all the visual effects for this were done by David Lang, and all of them were done in his computer. This film was finished on tape, as I said before, and did not go back to film. So we have no screening print of this, but we downloaded the Media 100 to the Digibeta, and that's what I think they've authored from is the Digibeta. Now this particular scene of strapping the guys in for their rub down and the whole thing is, I think, trimmed considerably for the short version of the film. I like Huntley's expression here, and of course the rubber gloves, of course, adds a certain twisted quality to this whole thing. Like, what in the hell is going to happen to me with those rubber gloves? So I got the candles working here. This was actually a room just off. This is on the first floor, even though it's supposed to be in the attic. It's the first floor of that location. It's just outside of the living room. It's the first scene of one of the first scenes of the picture. We just flipped the camera around and shot into the. Okay, now the wine is supposed to be like, since it's this poison voodoo wine, it's supposed to be like painful. It's like acid, and that's why I told the guys to really react when it got onto them. Now I think the R-rated version we pretty much cut at that point, and she came around, but now we're going to go for the full rub down here. I thought that the actors might have a little difficulty with this, and I think they did, but they're such troopers and so behind the movie that they just went for this. I mean, this is kind of unusual image for this kind of picture, this kind of thing. And then we went into this montage here, going from the rusty rub down to the montage of the young men doing their little writhing in bed, having their erotic nightmares. And then I think Drew just touched himself again. Very gung ho young man. And it was Tom Bader's idea, the editor, to intercut these two sequences. I thought it was a good idea, and this very. And then we have, of course, our shot of Kevin, which we did on our 5th day, which was done 6 months later. It's very interesting. This kind of, I don't know, this kind of imagery, I didn't think would play very well, and the people I've shown the film to actually responded quite well to it. Now this shot here, we're trying to disguise the fact that she's now a horned creature, but unfortunately we don't tilt the camera down fast enough, and she's not wearing her horns there. So you're not supposed to see that fact. She's supposed to be wearing her horns right there. And she starts her, she takes her little voodoo, what is it, voodoo sawdust or something? Voodoo, whatever. And then she does this. Now, as written, there was supposed to be some big device that had like this mechanical thing that goes down the guy, and it's a big well, that prop didn't show up, so I just said, okay, you hold your hand over the voodoo doll, hold your hand over his head. Now we have the CGI here, I think, coming up. And I'm looking at a copy of the film. It does not have CGI in it, but CGI is created by David Lang here. And she's now going through her little, I mean, this whole holding her hand made it a little more supernatural anyways, made her more of the master of the, of her voodoo, her voodoo scheme here. And then, of course, he disappears, and he ends up on the voodoo doll. That shot there was shot in 35 millimeter because actually all the shots of the boys' heads against blue and the shot of the plate of the table with the candles was done in 35 millimeter because in 35 we used a pin registered camera, which meant that the film was very, very locked in place. In 16 millimeter, there's a lot of room for the film to breathe within the gate, and then the head would then float too much on the voodoo doll. So we decided to shoot those sequences in 35. So when that head was actually matted on there, it would be locked on that voodoo doll and would not shake too much. Again, here we have Riley Portage pulling back, Riley looking terrific, and his little whiteys. His tidy whities, and then of course, then we have a very motivated Mrs. Bouvier here, trying to get her. She needs to get those 6 voodoo dolls in that in her little what the hell that thing's called, so she can bring back the armies of the dead. That's kind of the whole concept here. Again, grainy 16 and 35. I should have shot this whole picture in 35. It would have been much better. I should have shot in CinemaScope like I've done a few of the pictures recently. I actually shot Shrieker in CinemaScope and only released the pan and scan version. Recently I started a new production company called Rapid Heart Pictures, and we've done Ancient Evil and The Brotherhood. We shot in 35 CinemaScope. It looks phenomenal. 16 millimeters for the birds, so grainy. Again, kind of a oneer here, not very little coverage. Day 3 of the show, and Riley going to figure out what's going on up in that attic. So here I think we have music from Meridian at this point, but. Again, race against time. Get your candles in the foreground. Race against time to get this picture shot. and compounded with the fact, of course, as you can see, the camera's moving porta-jib. That's all done on a floating camera platform. No, there was no dolly or dolly grip on this movie. Nice shot of Riley. And you got your candle motif again here. Hold your gut in, Riley. And then, of course, we cut to 16mm Kodak insert on our pickup day to really show the little voodoo dolls with other heads. And of course, here's a noise, and I should have had another scene where he misses Father Carmichael, maybe in the hallway. There's a little bit of action there, of course. It wasn't in there, so it wasn't shot. Day interior here, the Riley and the this is more that 16 Fuji, but it looks better in the daytime stuff. It just sometimes disguises the grain a little bit. Keep the candles going always. Oh, and our Billy character has now suddenly got the hill figure action going here. It's interesting, the whole family at Full Moon of people that worked there during this time was very interesting, because a lot of them were my friends way before working in Full Moon. J.R. Bookwalter, who was a filmmaker I discovered in Akron, Ohio. I had just made a picture for Sam Raimi and was looking for funding for his next movie. Approached me, and I funded about a dozen movies for him, and I kind of imported him in from Ohio to L.A. to head up my post-production on the pictures that I was doing for Full Moon at the time. He ended up going on staff and became a director, directing Witch House 2. Bob Langer, who's the head of merchandising at Full Moon and heads up the Full Moon fan club, was a friend of mine from 18 years ago, and loved horror movies, and I introduced him to Charlie. He was hired, and he's still at Full Moon, and a lot of my friends still are working. Interesting, this location was abandoned, actually. It was not even a working residence. Nobody even lived there. There was a small shack in the rear of the building where the caretaker stayed. So they kind of turned us loose in here and had no idea what we were doing in this house, yeah, especially in that chapel. What I like to hear about Kevin Kalisher, the guy who plays Billy, is I liked that his voice sounded very boyish. He had an interesting voice, quality of his voice. It was adorable. He's working quite a bit now, actually. I remember Charlie coming to the set maybe once or twice on this one because Deborah was there, and Deborah was his protege at the time. She had just started Blood Dolls for him. And but he pretty much let me do what I wanted to do, which was nice on this one. I remember the crew being very, very quiet during some of these scenes. They just were very quiet and kind of a little alarmed sometimes at what we were doing, but we were still gung-ho and we had fun. I like the shot of Riley here. It's a nice tight close-up. I like these tight close-ups. His eyes sparkle. I think his green eyes gorgeous. Gotta let that little lip gloss go in there. Mihai's big on lip gloss. Keep those lips shining. One thing also about using the porta-jib or the floating camera is that if an actor doesn't hit their mark exactly, the camera can compensate for that. So it gives the actors a little bit more leeway. They don't have to really hit marks specifically. They can have more room to work and to make it more natural. And I like to leave actors to. I like to let actors. I like to empower actors to let them do things that that their character may do. They may know the character or develop their character and know it more than I do as a director. And I like empowering the actors and let them do things because. I want it to be natural and real. I want it to be. Deborah looks very good here, actually. The candle and then the nice top light there, backlight. But I love empowering my actors. I don't really talk their ears off. I'm actually doing more talking on this commentary than I did on this entire movie. shooting this entire movie in 4 days. And I love hiring actors who will take their characters, take the script, and turn the character into something that they feel comfortable playing. I don't want to challenge them too much, especially new actors, young actors. I want to see what they can bring to the table, and if they can really come up with something special that's not necessarily written in the script, I'm all for it. And I give them the freedom. But I keep an eye on them quite heavily. I make sure that they look good, that they play it in a real fashion, and empower them to keep making choices and taking risks. Because the only actors that really go anywhere are actors that take risks, I feel. I think this was probably, I had directed 11 movies for Full Moon within a 17-month period. And this was probably my 10th or 11th or something, near the end of a batch of movies I had done for them. Very, very exhausted, very tired, but this was kind of what I wanted to do, again, off the port of Jim No Dolly. Right there. And scene's kind of an awkward scene because they're very quiet, yet the Reverend comes in and says, everybody, now it's time for quiet. They're not really saying anything. I don't know what I was thinking there. I guess I was rushed. I think that might have been right before lunch, and usually that 10 minutes before lunch when I'm like burning the pages at that point, I sometimes let things slip and I have to fix it later. That's kind of tough. What's also great, working with department heads like Peggy Paola, who was the production designer and art director on this movie, is that I like to empower them, to let them bring their own sensibilities to the movie and their own ideas and that kind of thing. And I like doing that. I don't like hiring department heads, costumers, production designers, makeup artists who come to me and say, David, now what exactly do you want? And my response to that usually is, well, if I did, I'd do it myself. What do I need you for? Costume designer is a creative function. Makeup is a creative function. Production design, you're hired to bring your own thinking to this, to give me ideas, to give me choices, to say yes, yes, yes. I like that, I don't like this. I want it more green, I want it more red. I want it more orange. And one thing I've noticed with a lot of the people I've worked with and continue to work with is that they like working for me because I allow them to be creative and allow them to do things and try things. But if I don't like something, I'm not bashful. I tell them, nope, don't like that. Give me another choice. Okay, now we're going on to the scene here, which is probably the scene that probably created the most controversy at Full Moon, and with Charles Band, and with the development exec at the time, and even with the crew. Actually, the crew was a little unsettled by this particular scene. I wanted the scene not to be erotic. I wanted it to be more twisted. I didn't want it to be, erotic. I wanted it to be just very, very twisted and weird and have a real uncomfortable sense to it. And here you have this priest with an agenda, and he's he invents this religion to help this woman, this financier, to do her evil bidding. And not necessarily a comment on any kind of new religions, but it's just kind of an interesting take on it. And what was interesting is I was a little surprised and grateful, actually, that these actors had agreed to do this kind of scene without any hesitation whatsoever. It's kind of nice, actually, that they would take the risk and try something different. The trust, I guess they just really trusted me and trusted what I was trying to accomplish here. So that was pretty specific about what I was trying to do here. I was trying to get very, very close to the edge there on everything. And even though the film is erotic and a lot of people's eyes. There is really no nudity, which is part of my policy now and has been since a film I directed called Leather Jacket Love Story, which had a lot of nudity. At that point, I felt that maybe if I wanted to show any kind of eroticism, I'm no prude by any stretch of the imagination, but if I wanted to show any eroticism or anything, I would do it in a classier way or in a much more restrained way. Push the envelope, but allow the actors to keep their undies on. And I hate for actors to have to make that compromise when they're required to do nudity, because I've made dozens of those kinds of pictures, and it seems like once they start doing that, that's all they end up doing, and I'm not there. I'm interested in doing something that's interesting and innovative. I've done enough pictures. I don't want to go there anymore unless I really absolutely have to. Now, the kissing of the cross and all of this was not in the script. It was all actually my idea while we were shooting. And you'll see in some of the raw audio, if any of this raw audio actually makes it to the DVD, I actually talked through the entire sequence and instructing them to do it while we were shooting. We were actually inside the confessional here. This is not any kind of set. We actually opened the doors and went right in there and shot we just hung up some fabric, because obviously the insides of that confessional were pieces of like paneling, I think, really. And of course we have this dissolve. Yeah, okay. So we have the dissolve into Mrs. Bouvier. At one point I thought maybe I would just keep Reverend Carmichael in there doing this dialogue, this entire scene, and then have Ms. Bouvier come into it as well, and then kind of intercut between the two. But I thought maybe I was pushing a little too far. Although Chad Burris was willing to do whatever I told him to do. I felt that maybe we were crossing the line a little too much. This scene is extremely grainy, unfortunately. I think there might have been some underexposure. I think there may have been some stock problems, because this was not shot with new film. This was shot with what's called recanned film, or short ends. Not short ends, this recanned film. Once they pull the film out of the can, they put it in a magazine, and then they don't shoot that magazine. They pull it out of the magazine and recan it. It's considered an end. It's not new film anymore, even though you haven't shot any of it. It's still a 400-foot load. They put it back in the can. You get it on a cheap price from film recycle places. There's about a dozen of them here in Los Angeles. So I think we may have had some film that might have been sat in the sun a little too long, maybe, or was old or something, but it's just a little grainy and just tough to... And the high-speed films in general are much more sensitive to heat and to time. The newer the better. And because it's 16 millimeter, it's twice as volatile as 35. Didn't really like the lighting here. We were rushed again here. Just kind of very kind of small set too. Just there's no place to hide a light. But got the candles again in the crucifix motif. This movie was written, like I said before, for Riley. So he was going to be the hero. It was all about him. And I kind of get a little bit of satisfaction out of starting these young actors in these pictures, and they go off to do soap operas or movies, TV shows, that kind of thing. I like to be there at the beginning of their careers and give them a shot. I cast in an unusual fashion, as I go through every submission with Robert McDonald and Perry Bullington, who cast the movies. I go through every submission. There's usually thousands. Pick every photo for every actor that's an actress that's going to come in to read. I'm there at every pre-read. Usually read 2 actors every 5 minutes for a period of 2 days. We go through maybe 700 or 800 actors. And I'm there at callbacks for the producers, when there are callbacks for producers. And hand select pretty much every actor in the movie. 90% of my job, without sounding too cliche, is casting. And I love being at the beginning of these careers. It's almost like a gambling fixation I have. Like, you're going to be the lead in the movie. You've never been on a movie set before. You don't even know what a mark is, but you're the lead in this picture, and I've got a gut instinct that they're going to be something special. They have a natural talent, or they're gung-ho about something, about their work, and they really want to do a great job. And sometimes I've succeeded. Jason Shane Scott, who plays Will Rappaport on One Life to Live, started with me back on Shrieker and Curse of the Puppet Master, and Marissa Tate, who was on Bold and the Beautiful, started with me on Witch House, and Riley, of course, here is now on Freaks and Geeks, which I think is being picked up by the Fox Family Channel. And of course, Rhett is now doing feature films, and I just love being at the beginning of their careers. It's wonderful to see these kids, 18, 19 years old on their own, just going off to, carry TV shows. Kyle Howard started with me on Skeletons. Now he's on that opposite sex TV show. So I think this scene here is probably the most, next to that confessional scene, is probably the most uncomfortable scene for most people to watch, just because the kid is very vulnerable here. And the priest is obviously has an agenda, maybe more than one agenda here. And that's when he gets physical with this kid who was supposed to be naked in the bathroom, was actually wearing a skin-colored briefs. Very uncomfortable scene for the people that are reading it, and but for the actors, part of a day's work, no problems. Tough on the crew, I think. They're kind of, oh my god, what do we get ourselves into? And also kind of, story-wise, kind of, not consistent with really her procedure to turn them into voodoo dolls. But instead of strapping them down to that table every time, we decided just to take a shortcut, just dump the wine on the kid here. And he magically becomes the voodoo doll. Just worked a little better for us. Had the environment where he turns into a voodoo doll different than what we had done before. Okay, this was a 16mm plate here, CGI plate. The camera's kind of shaky, as you can see. A quickie dissolve in there, and then of course the 35mm. 35mm on him, 35 on him. All those plates are 35, and actually we used the Area 3, which is noisy, so we had one of our editors loop that line there because we couldn't find Chad. I'm going to make you very happy. It was actually one of the editors using their voice to kind of match Chad's voice, because at the time Chad was, we couldn't find him. And since the film was finished a year after it was made, it was tough to find some of these actors to do looping. And that was one particular line we had to loop because the Area 3 was so noisy, the 35 Area 3. This was like one of the last shots of day 4 inside this bathroom. We lit this in like a minute and blocked it in a minute, shot it in less than that. Just flew right through because we were running against time, and I don't like working over 12 and a half hours. I like to keep the cast and crew at a 12 and a half hour max, including lunch, just because it's I don't do very good work after 12 and a half hours, so we're all exhausted. We'll have to drive home, so best to get it out in 12 and a half. So this picture was basically all the principal photography was shot in 12 and a half hour days, 4 of them, plus about 8 hours worth of work on the insert stage for all those plate shots that you saw of the heads against blue. John Ellis was the supervisor of visual effects during that time. He's now moved on to bigger and better things. He supervised all the blue screen work on this. Okay, insert shot day 5. Right there, that one shot. And of course, I should have had the point of views from this cross. I should have had really more of as a security camera shot, almost from wide, just to see what was going on, but it did not happen. It's funny when you're directing these pictures and you're on the set and you're looking at your watch, which I stopped wearing a watch. My movies got much better about 5 years ago when I stopped wearing a watch. Let the first AD worry about the time. But it's funny when you find out what time it is. It seemed like time moves much faster because you have to get a lot of material in the can. There's a lot of stress, and time moves faster. So sometimes half an hour, sometimes an hour feels like a half an hour. It's like, oh my God, it's already 11 a.m. and I only got 4 pages in the can. Oh my God, I've got a huge day ahead of us. That's kind of my mantra on the set. Huge day ahead of us. What do you think this is? A 6-day picture? So And we got more of a, I think we used like every frame of footage we shot of these boys doing their writhing. It's funny, last dozen or so pictures I've done have had extremely handsome young men in them, and usually various states of, in their undies and what have you. And a lot of the laboratories that I have the film processed in will all the ladies, all the females that work at the lab will know that if Dave DeCouteau directed the picture, there's probably a lot of hot guys in it, so they'll all look at the dailies. And in the last picture I did, I had all my dailies were sitting in the accounting department at the lab as the women were having their lunch watching my dailies of my films. And of course they don't watch dailies on anything but except my movies. And then they give me the dailies with big smiles on their face and say, "Geez, Dave, we like processing your film." At least the accounting department does. So, okay, so this is kind of geographically kind of an awkward setup. I wanted to have one area where she could look at everything that was going on around her house, and now that Riley's broken in there, he's able to see what's going on. And Deborah looking quite enchanting and lovely, and of course Ben Indra playing Mike. Now he goes to the next cross hole there, so he can now watch the what's going on in her bedroom with the metallic metallic wallpaper. Very underexposed, very disappointing. Well, at least it's not shot on video. Shooting on video makes everybody look about 5 years older, because then you see every imperfection, every single line and wrinkle and blemish. And film is just much more attractive to the skin tones and the look, I think. All over your abs now, that's what I'm saying. But this is part of the this DVD is part of the Lunar Edition series of DVDs coming out with which are jam full of extras. And I guess the reason you'll see in the trailer reel I used a lot of pseudonyms is that when a film I feel wasn't properly let's say produced, I felt that maybe we should I could take my name off, but I didn't need another credit. So if a film was completely edited improperly, as far as in my eyes, I would not necessarily take the credit if I didn't control the whole process from beginning to end at some point. I used Richard Chasen as the director of the short version of Voodoo, which is the name I used on Killer Eye, which was Richard Chasen, which was short for Dick Chasen. Get it? I actually used my name. It's my first picture I think I've used my real name on since Puppet Master 3. And I directed Puppet Master 3 back in 1991, I think, for Charlie, back when we used to have budgets, and back when Paramount Pictures was our distributor. The budgets for the Full Moon Pictures are extremely, extremely low. And we're all doing our best to work within the time and budget constraints to do the best we can. And this is the first time I've used my name on a picture since Puppet Master 3, and I ended up directing, I think, a total of 3 the Puppet Master films. I did Part 6 and Part 7, which I actually quite like. Part 7 turned out quite nicely, but then again, some scenes were edited. Okay, we got our horns here now. The picture was edited, and I took my name off because it was edited improperly. They cut a lot of good stuff out of that movie. Now, all the makeup and special makeup effects were done by Chris Bergschneider and Jeff Farley, who are my effects gurus, who I try to have do all the effects and all the pictures I do, just because those guys are fabulous. And again, it's nice to have a team that you've worked with before that you can really count on, that really bring a lot to the table. And these guys really have always pull rabbits out of the hat constantly. They just come together very quickly, and they know the routine, they know how it works, they know what I'm going to shoot, how I'm going to shoot it, and it's always there and ready. And they're very fast. Their application is quite quick. I think that application on Deborah was about an hour to get this whole horn look on, and the fingernails and everything. And you'll see that all the, for example, now we've got all these master shots and all of this material here earlier without her horns on, and then we have this. Now all the close-ups of the boys were done all in order while she was getting her horns put on. So you'll have, like, for example, you'll have, should be a shot coming up here of the guys laying on the table, like a close-up. All those close-ups were shot all at the same time. Not that shot, but the close-ups of the boys writhing, on the table. All those shots were done while Deborah was getting her horns put on. So we just brought Red in, we brought Huntley in, we brought all the boys in, and shot all those shots while Deborah got her horns on. And that, of course, is kind of a, okay, we have 35 background play out of focus, 35 foreground, 35 shot of Deborah, 35 back of his head. Back to 16 here. The Oracle, that's what it's called, the Oracle. 6 dolls in the Oracle. You're the boss. Chad's a really handsome guy. I think he's doing some big movies now. Insert that shot right there. I just needed a quick insert because this stuff I shot him during principal photography, but that one shot of him walking past really quick, Tom Vader, the editor, came to me and said, Dave, can you use a real quick shot of him just coming out of the shadows real quick as I cut away. So I shot that on day 5. Some of the tight shots of the bodies too, the real tight shots, like earlier on of Red's eyeball looking up at her, and tight shot of the Reverend unbuttoning his shirt, was all done on day 5 as well. So of course she's getting her, this close-up, she's getting her horns on at this point. And Jesse, and then of course we'll do the off-screen dialogue as being the script supervisor. Her voice was processed here. It was actually Deborah's voice, but Jake C. Michaels and his sound magic does the tweaking of the voice and pitch shifts it and makes her sound a little more demonic. I think of all the movies I've made for Fullman, I probably did not have more fun on any other picture than this, just because it was just a fun experience. The cast and crew were phenomenal and just really supportive, and were there for me 100%. Kind of like, and the sad part of the whole picture though was the producer of the film was Kirk Edward Hansen, and Kirk died not too long after this film was finished. He never got to see the completed movie, but Kirk was probably the world's greatest line producer, and a dear friend, and a class act, a gentleman, and very understanding and very helpful, and always juggled 4 or 5 movies simultaneously. I don't know how he did it. It's kind of a sad story, though. That whole year was a sad year, actually. But David Allen, I had produced David Allen's first film that he had directed called Puppet Master 2. I produced that for him. So sad that we lost David, because his picture Primeals didn't even get finished until now. I think Chris Endicott is finishing the picture. But Mona Vasilio, who was the unit production manager on the show, went on to work for Saban. She's doing Mighty Morphin Power Rangers now. Pulls through, zaps the wine bottle. Wine bottle insert was day 5. It was the insert day 6 months later. Now on this shot there, with the wine gets on them, I had, during our spotting session, said, let's put CGI over them, sparkle and glows. Somehow that just did not happen. So it just didn't happen, so it's not in the movie. I shot a lot of CGI on them, it doesn't really work without it. But then we went back to the thing. And we're upstairs and the thing. Should have a little bit of CGI there too, would have been nice. Well, I hope you enjoyed our Voodoo Academy DVD Lunar Edition, 93-minute movie. I had a blast making the film. I hope you had a good time watching it. And I'm hoping that if you've rented this, that you'll want to buy it and prove to Charlie that this investing in this movie was a worthwhile investment after all, and that even though it's the most unusual full moon movie ever made, at least it was trying to do something a little different than most everybody else, trying to push a few buttons. And I guess one thing about horror movies, you can kind of do what you want to do, and there's no limits. And hopefully you agree with me there, and we'll try something new and different on the next one. And thanks for renting or buying this DVD, and look for more David DeCouteau pictures coming soon through Rapid Heart Pictures at www.rapidheart.com. You'll see my little vanity website there, and talks about all the pictures I've got coming up. Work for various companies, so it's pretty exciting. Here's the end credits here. Kind of a short end credit roll because there was not much of a crew. It was a very small, low-budget movie. And so hopefully you had a good time watching this picture. So thank you very much. And hopefully I didn't talk your ear off, but I got the gift for gab. So I will talk to you later. Thank you very much for tuning in to Voodoo Academy.